Maya Chen bounced on her small feet as she watched the big ships dock at Kepler Station. The 8-year-old girl pressed her nose against the thick glass window, leaving tiny smudges as she tried to see everything at once. Her dark eyes went wide as a massive Velthari cruiser slowly moved into the docking bay below. "Stay close to me, Maya," her mother called from across the waiting area. "Your father will be done with the shipping contract soon." But Maya was already walking toward the corridor that led to the docking bays. She had never seen a real Velthari ship up close. The other human children back on New Terra would never believe her if she could not describe every detail. The corridor was quieter than the main station areas. Maya's soft shoes made no sound on the metal floor as she crept closer to the restricted area. She could hear strange clicking sounds and smell something like burned metal in the air. The security door had a red light, but it was open just a crack. Maya squeezed through without thinking about the warnings posted on the walls. She found herself in a large bay where tall, gray-skinned aliens were unloading cargo containers. The Velthari were bigger than she had expected. They moved on 4 legs like giant spiders, with 2 long arms that ended in metal-looking claws. Their heads were triangle-shaped, and their eyes were completely black. Maya took a step forward to get a better look. Her shoe scraped against a loose piece of metal on the floor. The sound echoed in the big space. Every Velthari in the bay stopped moving. Their black eyes turned toward the small human girl standing in the doorway. One of them, wearing a dark blue uniform with silver markings, began walking toward her. His metal claws clicked against the floor with each step. Commander Zex Thera had been having a difficult day. The cargo manifest was wrong. 2 of his crew members were sick, and now this. A dirty human child had contaminated his sterile loading zone. The creature stood there, staring at him with its round, wet eyes. Humans were disgusting. They leaked fluids from their skin and breathed germs into the air. This small one was even worse, probably carrying diseases that could spread to his entire crew. The child needed to be taught respect immediately. Maya felt scared as the big alien came closer. She wanted to run back to her parents, but her feet would not move. The creature was so tall that it blocked out the ceiling lights above her. "You do not belong here, human spawn," Zex Thera said, in heavily accented standard. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "This area is restricted to clean species only." "I am sorry," Maya whispered. "I just wanted to see the ships." "Sorry is not enough." Zex Thera raised his right arm. The biometallic appendage caught the light as it moved. "You have contaminated this entire bay with your presence. You will learn to respect your superiors." The blow came faster than Maya could react. Zex Thera's metal claw struck her across the left side of her face, with a sound like breaking glass. The force lifted the small girl off her feet and sent her flying backward into the corridor wall. Maya hit the metal surface hard and crumpled to the floor. Blood ran from her nose and mouth. She tried to cry out for her mother, but only a weak sound came from her throat. The world spun around her as pain shot through her head. Zex Thera looked down at the bleeding child with satisfaction. "Perhaps now you will remember to stay in the areas designated for lesser species," he said. Then he turned and walked back to his cargo as if nothing had happened. The station's security cameras had recorded everything. The AI system that monitored all activities on Kepler Station immediately flagged the incident and sent alerts to the medical bay and security office. Dr. Williams arrived first, running down the corridor with his medical kit. He found Maya unconscious and bleeding heavily. Her left cheek was crushed, and he could see bone fragments through the torn skin. "Emergency medical to Docking Bay 7, he called into his communicator as he carefully lifted the small girl. "Critical head trauma. Prep surgery room 2. Maya's parents reached the medical bay just as the doctors were taking her into surgery. Her mother screamed when she saw the blood on her daughter's torn clothes. Her father had to hold her back as the medical team worked. "What happened?" her father demanded from Dr. Williams. "Commander Zex Thera of the Velthari vessel struck your daughter," Dr. Williams said quietly. "She has a fractured skull and internal bleeding. The next few hours are critical. Station security recorded official statements, but everyone knew nothing would come of it. The Velthari had diplomatic immunity, and striking a human child was not considered a serious crime under Galactic Commerce Accord rules. But the station's AI had already transmitted the security footage to human networks across the galaxy. Within minutes, the video was spreading through military channels, civilian networks, and corporate communications systems. Humans working on distant mining stations stopped what they were doing to watch. Families on colony worlds gathered around their screens in shocked silence. Soldiers in the Outer Rim paused their patrols to see the small girl being struck down by an alien 3 times her size. The footage was clear and showed everything. Maya's innocent face as she stared at the ships. Zex Thera's deliberate movement as he raised his arm. The sickening sound of metal striking flesh. The child's broken body flying through the air. By the time Maya came out of surgery 12 hours later, every human in known space had seen what happened to her. And deep in places where humanity's oldest instincts still lived, something ancient and dangerous began to wake up. Captain Sarah Martinez stared at the screen in the briefing room of the UHS Retribution. Around her, 23 other Marines sat in complete silence. The only sound was the quiet hum of the ship's life support systems. The video finished playing. Maya's small body lay motionless against the wall, while Commander Zex Thera walked away. Sarah's hands slowly closed into fists. "That's my sister's kid," she said quietly. Sergeant Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "Captain?" "Maya Chen. 8 years old. That's my niece." Sarah's voice stayed calm, but her eyes had gone cold. "She was supposed to visit me next month. Wanted to see a real warship." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. 24 apex predators from humanity's homeworld sat thinking the same thoughts. None of them spoke, but they all understood. Someone had hurt the pack. Someone had hurt a child. Sarah stood up slowly. "Rodriguez, get me a full tactical analysis of Velthari ships and stations. Thompson, I want everything we have on their military capabilities. Wilson, start tracking Commander Zex Thera's location and movements." "Yes, ma'am," came the immediate responses. "What about orders from command?" asked Lieutenant Hayes. Sarah looked at him with eyes that had seen too many battlefields. "What orders?" "We're on patrol in the Outer Rim. Nothing unusual about that." 3 sectors away, on the mining station Deep Rock 7, Shift Supervisor Jake Morrison watched the video for the 5th time. His hands shook as he reached for his communicator. "Hey, Danny," he called to his assistant. "You still got contacts with those mercenary groups?" Danny looked up from his workstation. "Yeah, sure. Why?" Morrison pointed at his screen. "Because some alien bastard just hit a human kid, and I'm thinking it's time someone explained consequences to him." The same scene played out across human space. On New Shanghai Colony, retired Marine Colonel Patricia Vance watched the footage and quietly began making calls to old friends. On the corporate world of Titan Prime, Security Chief Marcus Webb started pulling favors from contacts in the intelligence community. Human ships began changing course throughout the galaxy. Not all at once. Not obviously, but with the slow coordination of a species that had evolved to hunt together. Meanwhile, on the Veltari homeworld of Veltara Prime, Commander Zex Thera filed his incident report. He described the contamination of his loading bay by an uncontrolled human juvenile, and his necessary corrective action to maintain health standards. High Command reviewed the report with approval. Commander Telvaxis, Zex Thera's superior, even sent a commendation. "Excellent work maintaining order," the message read. "Humans must learn their place in civilized space. Your decisive action prevents future incidents." The Velthari leadership had studied humans for years. They were emotional creatures, driven by primitive instincts. They would make noise about this incident, file complaints through diplomatic channels, and eventually forget about it. That was how inferior species always behaved. The first warning came from the Kethmari, a peaceful trading race that worked closely with humans. Ambassador Sarenth sent an urgent message to the Velthari Council. Recommend immediate disciplinary action against Commander Zex Thera. Human response patterns suggest escalation beyond normal parameters. The Velthari dismissed the warning. The Kethmari were cowards who feared their own shadows. They saw threats everywhere. The second warning came from the Zephyrian Commonwealth, humanity's closest allies in galactic politics. The footage has spread through human networks faster than our computers can track, Ambassador Thyril reported. Their military units are moving without official orders. This is not normal human behavior. Again, the Velthari ignored the warning. Humans were chaotic by nature. Their military probably moved ships around randomly all the time. By the third day, even the mighty hegemony of Roth sent a message. Strongly advise immediate appeasement measures. Human pack behavior activated. Situation critical. Commander Telvaxis read the warnings with growing irritation. These species live in fear of human emotional outbursts, he told his staff. We will not bow to their primitive threats. But humans working on Velthari stations began disappearing. Human-operated supply ships stopped arriving at Velthari worlds. Human corporations quietly canceled contracts worth billions of credits. On Earth, Maya's parents received thousands of messages from humans they had never met. Military veterans, corporate executives, simple farmers from the outer colonies. All of them said the same thing. We are sorry. We will remember. Dr. Williams worked around the clock to save Maya's vision. The child drifted in and out of consciousness, unaware that her injury had triggered something ancient in the human psyche. Sarah Martinez stood in the war room of the UHS Retribution, looking at a holographic display of the galaxy. Red dots marked the position of every human military ship. Blue dots showed human civilian vessels. The pattern was clear to anyone who knew how to read it. Ma'am, Sergeant Rodriguez said quietly. We've got his location. Zex Thera has been transferred to Research Station Omega-7 in the Velthari Outer Territories. How many ships in the area? Officially? None. Unofficially? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Looks like half the human fleet is suddenly very interested in that sector. Sarah nodded. Send a message to all ships. No central coordination. No official orders. Just make sure everyone knows where the target is. And if command asks what we're doing, we're conducting independent patrols. Nothing unusual about that. The message went out through encrypted channels to ship captains across human space. Not orders. Just information. The location of Commander Zex Thera. The tactical capabilities of Research Station Omega-7. The number of escape routes in the system. Human ships began moving toward the target like sharks drawn to blood in the water. Some were military vessels operating without orders. Others were mercenary groups working for free. A few were civilian ships whose crews had decided that profit was less important than justice. The Velthari still did not understand what was happening. They saw human ship movements as random, emotional responses. They failed to recognize the coordinated hunt of Earth's apex predators. Commander Zex Thera settled into his new assignment at the research station, confident that the incident was behind him. He had taught the humans a lesson about respecting superior species. He had no idea that 27 ships carrying humanity's most dangerous individuals were converging on his location. He did not know that his name was now spoken in the same breath as words like justice and consequences in 1,000 different human languages. Maya Chen slept peacefully in her hospital bed, her small hand wrapped in bandages. The doctors said she would recover, but she would always have scars. The humans coming for Zex Thera intended to make sure he had scars too. Research Station Omega-7 drifted in the empty space between star systems, a gray metal structure the size of a small city. Commander Zex Thera had arrived 3 days ago, still believing his transfer was a promotion to an important research position. The station studied dangerous stellar phenomena, requiring it to be far from inhabited worlds. This isolation made it the perfect place for the Veltari High Command to hide their problematic officer until the human incident was forgotten. Zexthyra stood in his new office, looking out at the stars through reinforced windows. The view was peaceful, with nothing but darkness and distant suns. He felt satisfied with how he had handled the contamination incident on Kepler Station. "Sir," came a voice from behind him, "the morning security briefing is ready." Station Commander Velkaris waited by the door. She was older than Zexthyra, with the scars that came from years of military service. Unlike him, she understood that humans were more dangerous than they appeared. "Any concerns I should know about?" Zexthyra asked, as they walked to the briefing room. "Long-range sensors detected several ships in nearby systems," Velkaris said carefully. "The traffic seems unusual for this sector." Zexthyra waved a dismissive claw. "Probably merchant vessels. This area is along several trade routes." But Velkaris had studied the scan reports carefully. The ships were not following trade routes. They were moving in a slow pattern around the station's position, like predators circling prey. In the briefing room, Security Chief Moxtar displayed the sensor data on a large screen. Red dots marked ship positions over the past week. To Zexthyra, it looked random. To anyone trained in military tactics, it looked like a hunting formation. 16 vessels detected so far, Moxtar reported. Mix of military and civilian designs. Most are keeping their distance and running silent. "Species identification?" Velkaris asked. Moxtar hesitated. "All human ships, Commander." The room fell silent. Zexthyra looked confused, but the other officers exchanged worried glances. They had all received the intelligence briefings about unusual human military movements in recent days. "Probably a coincidence," Zexthyra said finally. "Humans travel everywhere for their primitive trade activities." Velkaris was not convinced. "Security to condition yellow. Double the watch rotations, and keep full sensor sweeps running." 2 light-years away, Captain Sarah Martinez studied the same tactical display from the bridge of the UHS Retribution. Her ship hung in the shadow of a dead moon, hidden from the station's sensors. "How many ships are in position?" she asked. Lieutenant Hayes consulted his console. 27. Confirmed. Mix of military and civilian vessels. All volunteer crews. Sarah nodded. No official orders had been given. No human government had declared war on the Velthari. This was something older and more basic than politics. What about the station's defenses? Energy shields, automated defense platforms, and a garrison of about 200 Velthari soldiers, Hayes reported. Standard military installation for their outer territories. Sarah studied the data. By galactic standards, Research Station Omega-7 was well defended. Its shields could stop most weapons, and its automated guns could track multiple targets. Against most species, it would be nearly impossible to attack. But humans had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. They had learned to hunt creatures stronger and faster than themselves, using patience, planning, and tools. "Send a message to all ships," Sarah ordered. "Begin Phase 1. The human ships moved like ghosts through the dark. They used no active sensors, communicated only through tight beam transmissions, and stayed in the sensor shadows of asteroids and debris fields. Each ship had a specific role. The military vessels would handle the station's defenses. The civilian ships carried specialized equipment for cutting through hull armor. The mercenary groups would secure escape routes and communications. On the mining vessel Deep Strike, Jake Morrison checked his equipment one final time. His ship was not built for war, but he had loaded its cargo bay with industrial cutting tools and explosives. If someone needed to blast through the station's outer hull, he could do it. "Never thought I'd be doing this," his assistant Danny said nervously. Morrison sealed his combat suit and picked up a plasma cutter. "Yeah. Well, I never thought I'd see an alien hit a human kid either." Sometimes you do what needs doing. Similar conversations were happening on ships throughout the system. Retired soldiers, remembering their training. Corporate security teams using company equipment for personal justice. Families who had pooled their savings to hire mercenaries. None of them knew each other personally, but they were united by something deeper than friendship. They were a pack, and their pack had been threatened. Commander Zex Thera remained unaware of the danger closing around him. He spent his days reviewing research data and filing reports about stellar radiation levels. The work was boring, but he assumed it was temporary. On his 4th day at the station, he noticed increased security patrols in the corridors. When he asked about it, Velkaris gave vague answers about routine drills. The human ships are still out there, she admitted when Zex Thera pressed for details. They haven't made any hostile moves, but they're not leaving either. Zex Thera felt a flash of anger. They dare to threaten a Velthari military installation? Send a message demanding they leave our territory immediately. End quote. Sir, we're in neutral space, Security Chief Moxtar pointed out carefully. They have as much right to be here as we do. Then what do you suggest? Velkaris had been thinking about this problem for days. Request immediate reinforcement from the Third Fleet. If humans are planning something, we need more ships. Oh. But when they sent the request, High Command's response was dismissive. The humans were probably just conducting training exercises. The Velthari Empire would not waste resources on phantom threats. That night, Research Station Omega-7 lost contact with 3 of its outer sensor platforms. The automated systems simply went offline without warning. When repair teams went to investigate, they found the platforms completely missing. Impossible, Moxtar muttered, staring at the sensor display. Our detection grid shows nothing. No ships, no weapons fire, no debris. The platforms just vanished. Velkaris understood what was happening even if she could not prove it. They're testing our defenses, learning our patrol patterns, and sensor coverage. More platforms disappeared over the following days. Each time, the humans took only what they needed to map the station's defenses. They worked with the patience of creatures who had hunted mammoth across ice sheets and tracked prey for days without rest. Zex Thera grew increasingly frustrated with his paranoid subordinates. You're jumping at shadows. Even if humans wanted revenge for that contamination incident, they lacked the coordination for complex operations. But late at night, when the station was quiet, even he began to feel watched. Something was moving in the darkness around them. Something patient and dangerous, and getting closer every day. The hunt had begun, and the humans were very good at hunting. The attack began at 0347 station time, during the quiet hours when most of the crew was asleep. Research Station Omega-7's automated systems detected nothing until the first explosions bloomed against its shields. Security Chief Moxtar jerked awake as alarms screamed throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as he ran toward the command center, his 4 legs carrying him faster than any human could move. Report, he barked as he burst into the room. Multiple contacts closing on our position. The watch officer replied. 27 ships, all human design. They're attacking from 6 different vectors. On the main display, Moxtar watched human vessels emerge from the dark, like predators, revealing themselves for the kill. They had been there all along, hidden in sensor shadows and debris fields, waiting for the perfect moment. Commander Velkaris arrived moments later, already dressed in combat armor. Shield status? Holding at 90%. The attacks seemed designed to test our response rather than cause serious damage. Velkaris studied the tactical display with growing unease. The human ships were not attacking like any military force she had ever seen. There was no central coordination, no standard formation. Instead, they moved like a pack of hunters, each ship finding its own angle of attack. Where is Commander Zex Thera? She asked. Still in his quarters, Moxtar replied. No, Keep him safe. Something tells me he's what they came for. The first wave of attacks intensified. Human ships darted in and out of the station's weapon range, never staying in one place long enough for the automated guns to lock on. They used tactics that seemed random, but were actually based on millions of years of hunting instinct. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." "Put it through." Captain Sarah Martinez's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held the cold focus of a predator that had found its prey. "Research Station, Omega-7. This is Captain Martinez of the UHS Retribution. We are here for Commander Zex Thera. Surrender him, and no one else needs to get hurt." Velkaris straightened her shoulders. "This is Commander Velkaris. You are attacking a Velthari military installation without provocation. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences." Sarah's expression did not change. "Commander, that officer under your protection struck a human child, an 8-year-old girl who was just curious about your ships. We're here to make sure he understands what that costs. One disciplinary action does not justify this aggression," Velkaris replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "You're right," Sarah said quietly. "It justifies much more." The transmission ended, and the real attack began. The humans had spent days studying the station's defenses, learning every weakness and blind spot. Now they exploited that knowledge with surgical precision. Industrial mining ships moved in close, their cutting tools adapted for warfare. Plasma beams designed to slice through asteroid rock carved through the station's outer armor, like it was paper. Military vessels provided cover fire. Their weapons targeted not to destroy but to disable specific systems. "Shields down to 60%, reported the tactical officer. "They're targeting the generator nodes with pinpoint accuracy." Velkaris watched in growing horror as the humans dismantled their defenses piece by piece. This was not the chaotic emotional response the intelligence briefings had predicted. This was the methodical work of apex predators who knew exactly how to kill. "Deploy the defense platforms," she ordered. Automated gun turrets emerged from hidden compartments around the station's hull. They immediately began tracking human ships and firing with computer-controlled precision. But the humans had planned for this too. They used electronic warfare systems to confuse the targeting computers, sending false signals and phantom contacts. When the guns fired, they hit empty space, while the real ships attacked from unexpected angles. Jake Morrison's mining ship Deep Strike broke through the outer perimeter, its hull scarred by weapons fire, but still functional. He guided his vessel toward the station's docking bays with the skill of someone who had navigated asteroid fields for 20 years. "Danny, get ready with those charges," he called to his assistant. The ship punched through the bay doors in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Morrison felt the impact through his bones, but the old mining vessel held together. Human soldiers poured out of the cargo bay before the ship had fully stopped. They wore no standard uniforms. Some were active military, others corporate security. A few were civilian volunteers with hunting rifles. But they all moved with the coordinated purpose of a pack. Velthari soldiers waited in defensive positions throughout the station. They had energy weapons and tactical armor, advantages that should have made them superior to any human force. But humans had learned to fight creatures with natural weapons and armor. They used cover and movement, teamwork and cunning. Where the Velthari expected frontal attacks, humans appeared from side passages and maintenance shafts. Sergeant Rodriguez led a squad through the station's lower levels, following blueprints stolen from Velthari databases. They moved like their ancestors had through prehistoric caves, watching for threats from every direction. "Contact ahead," whispered Corporal Kim. 4 Velthari soldiers. "Energy weapons." Rodriguez nodded. "Thompson, Wilson, go around. Hit them from behind when we start shooting." The firefight lasted 30 seconds. The Velthari had better weapons and armor, but they fought like individuals. The humans fought as a coordinated unit, covering each other's movements and sharing information instantly. When the shooting stopped, 4 Velthari soldiers lay unconscious from stun weapons, and the humans continued deeper into the station. Similar scenes played out throughout Omega 7. Human boarding parties advanced through corridors with inexorable patience, overcoming each defensive position through superior tactics and teamwork. In the command center, Velkaris watched her defenses crumble. "How many casualties?" she asked. 17 wounded, 3 unconscious, Moxtar reported. "The humans are using non-lethal weapons whenever possible." Velkaris found this somehow more terrifying than if they had been trying to kill everyone. This was not mindless violence. It was controlled, purposeful, and heading straight for their target. "Sir," the communications officer said urgently, "the humans have reached Commander Zex Thyra's quarters." On the security cameras, they watched a small group of humans approach the sealed door. One of them placed a device against the wall and stepped back. The explosion was precisely calculated to breach the barrier without causing structural damage to the rest of the station. Captain Sarah Martinez stepped through the smoking hole, her weapon ready but pointed down. Behind her came 2 other soldiers, their faces hidden behind combat masks. Commander Zex Thyra cowered in the corner of his quarters, his earlier confidence completely gone. He had expected the station's defenses to protect him. He had believed Velkari's superiority would triumph over human emotion. Now he stared up at the predators who had traveled across the galaxy to find him, and finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. "Commander Zex Thyra," Sarah said quietly, "you and I need to have a conversation about consequences." Captain Sarah Martinez stepped into Commander Zex Thyra's quarters, her boots crunching on debris from the breached wall. The Velthari officer pressed himself against the far corner, his 4 legs trembling as he stared at the humans who had come for him. "You cannot do this," Zex Thyra said, his voice high with panic. "I have diplomatic immunity. This is an act of war." Sarah removed her helmet, revealing a face marked by years of combat. Her eyes were the same dark brown as her niece Maya, but they held no warmth now. "War?" Sarah asked quietly. "No, Commander. This is justice." She motioned to her soldiers, who spread out to cover the room's exits. Behind her mask, Sergeant Rodriguez watched the alien with the cold patience of a hunter who had finally cornered dangerous prey. "The child contaminated a sterile area," Zex Thyra protested. "I was maintaining health protocols. It was a minor disciplinary action. Her name is Maya," Sarah said. 8 years old. She likes drawing pictures of spaceships and wants to be an engineer when she grows up. Or she did, before you crushed half her face with a metal claw. Zex Thyra's black eyes darted around the room, looking for escape routes that did not exist. It was nothing personal. Standard procedure for dealing with inferior species. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah's expression remained calm, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Inferior species," she repeated. "Is that what you think we are?" Before Zex Thyra could answer, she moved. Humans were slower than Velthari in short sprints, but Sarah had trained for exactly this scenario. Her hand shot out and grabbed the alien's upper right limb, the same one he had used to strike Maya. Zex Thyra tried to pull away, but human grip strength was legendary among spacefaring species. Sarah's fingers, evolved from tree-climbing ancestors, locked around his limb like a mechanical vice. "You want to know about inferior species?" Sarah asked conversationally. She twisted his arm, applying just enough pressure to cause pain without breaking bone. Zex Thyra gasped and tried to strike her with his other limbs. But Rodriguez and the 3rd soldier stepped forward to restrain him. "We learned that everything on our world was bigger, faster, and stronger than us," Sarah continued. "So we got very good at finding weaknesses, very good at working together. and very, very good at making sure threats to our pack never threaten us again. Throughout the station, human soldiers were giving Velthari personnel a choice. Leave now through the escape pods, or stay and share their commander's fate. Most chose to leave. Commander Velkaris stood in the command center, watching her crew abandon their posts. She understood the humans' message. They had not come to destroy the station or kill everyone aboard. They wanted only one thing. Sir, Security Chief Moxtar said quietly, perhaps we should evacuate as well. Velkaris looked at him with sadness. And leave Zex Thyra to whatever they have planned? He brought this on himself, and on all of us. After a moment, Velkaris nodded. Give the evacuation order. Full withdrawal to the emergency rendezvous point. Back in Zex Thyra's quarters, Sarah had forced the alien to his knees. She kept his arm twisted at an angle that caused constant pain but no permanent damage. Yet, the funny thing about humans, Sarah said, is that we're persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? Zex Thyra tried to speak but could only make choking sounds. It means we don't give up. Ever. When our ancestors wanted to kill a mammoth, they didn't need to be faster or stronger. They just had to follow it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then they killed it with rocks and sticks. She twisted his arm a little more. Zex Thyra screamed. You hit a human child. Not a soldier, not a threat, just a curious little girl who wanted to see pretty spaceships. And now, 27 ships full of humans have traveled across the galaxy to make sure you understand what that means. Please, Zex Thyra gasped. I did not know. I did not understand. No, Sarah agreed. You didn't. But you're going to learn. She released his arm and stepped back. Zex Thyra collapsed forward, cradling his injured limb against his chest. For a moment, he thought the torture was over. Then, Sarah picked up a metal tool from his desk. It was a data stylus, normally used for inputting information into computer systems. In her hands, it looked like a weapon. Maya's skull was fractured in 3 places, Sarah said, examining the tool. The doctors had to rebuild her cheekbone with synthetic materials. She'll have scars for the rest of her life. She knelt down next to Zex Thyra, who was now shaking uncontrollably. I think you should have some scars too. Help you remember this lesson. What followed was precise, methodical, and educational. Sarah had studied Velthari anatomy during the journey to find Zex Thyra. She knew exactly where to apply pressure to cause maximum pain without killing him. Every cut, every broken bone, every moment of agony was calculated to match what Maya had experienced. Sarah wanted Zex Thyra to understand exactly how it felt to be small, helpless, and hurt by something much bigger than himself. The session lasted exactly as long as Maya's surgery had taken. 12 hours. When it was over, Zex Thyra lay on the floor of his quarters, broken but alive. His face bore scars that would never fully heal, and his right arm hung at an unnatural angle. But he was conscious and able to speak. Do you understand now? Sarah asked, cleaning blood from her hands. Yes, Zex Thyra whispered. I understand. Good, because this message is going to every species in the galaxy. You don't touch human children. Ever. For any reason. Sarah stood and put her helmet back on. Rodriguez, get this recorded and transmitted to every news network in known space. Full audio and video. As her soldiers prepared the transmission equipment, Sarah looked down at Zex Thyra one final time. If you ever see another human child, Commander, you walk away. If you ever hear of someone else hurting a human child, you stop them. Because if we have to come for you again, we won't be as gentle. The humans left Research Station Omega-7 as efficiently as they had arrived. Their ships scattered in different directions, returning to patrol routes and shipping lanes as if nothing had happened. But the recording of Zex Thyra's punishment spread through galactic networks faster than any official news report. Every species in civilized space watched a human slowly and methodically break a Velthari officer, while explaining exactly why. The message was clear. Human children were protected by the full fury of humanity's oldest instincts. Touch one, and face the consequences. On Kepler Station, Maya Chen woke up in her hospital bed to find her room filled with flowers and toys sent by humans she had never met. The doctors said her surgery had been successful, and she would make a full recovery. She was too young to understand that her injury had changed something fundamental in how the galaxy viewed her species. All she knew was that the nice nurse had promised to show her pictures of the human ships that had visited the station. Maya smiled and asked if she could see the big warships. She still wanted to be an engineer when she grew up, and now she had even more ships to draw. In government buildings across the galaxy, new protocols were quietly added to first contact procedures. Cultural briefings were updated. Trade agreements included additional clauses. The Velthari Empire issued a formal apology for Commander Zex Thyra's actions and implemented strict new guidelines for interacting with human civilians. Other species followed suit, without being asked. Humanity had reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. They were not just visitors from a dangerous world. They were the dangerous world, walking among the stars, carrying their ancient loyalties and protective instincts with them. And at the center of those instincts, protected by the full might of humanity's terrible patience and ruthless love, were their children. The galaxy would remember.